IT has always been going through quite a few changes, but in the past few years, the change of pace has accelerated significantly. So now we're seeing everyone is mobile, everyone is connected, whether at home, coffee shop, airports, whether they got their mobile devices, they got their laptops, it's all connected, and most often they're going to some service sitting in the cloud. It may be some social media, to streaming, to Facebook, to Office 365 and whatnot. And on top of that, employees are bringing their own devices. This whole phenomenon of bring your own device, BYOD, is creating a whole range of new challenges because company-owned devices were easier to control and manage. BYOD creates a new problem. And Internet of Things, everything is becoming smart. We hear about self-driving cars to all these homes that are controlling temperatures, to video cameras, to everything. So all of these things are essentially moving security from the traditional perimeter of an enterprise to the edge of the internet. What does that mean? Let's take a look at it. The old world of IT is very comfortable, easy. Why was it easy? Well, it's based on a castle and moat model. We built a castle. In this castle, you have all the key applications. SAP Exchange, PeopleSoft, and Oracle. And you have employees sitting inside, applications sitting inside. And if you have multiple offices, you connected them using a hub and spoke network. So everyone came to the same hub, used the applications, and it was not common to go to the internet, which is a casual thing, and you went through one gateway to the internet. So life was pretty good. IT knew what was going on, good visibility, pretty good controls. Then things changed. No, before we go there. So part of that gateway, there was a notion called internet gateways. You need to protect the gateway, and that's where a bunch of security appliances were put in place. And this is a real example of a large bank who had to put a lot of these devices to make sure employees going to the internet are safe. This ranges from some load balancers to proxies to sandboxing technologies, FireEyes to DLP kind of stuff from 1.2 and firewalls and whatnot. In fact, in this bank, if you look at all these numbers, they labeled that once you hit the browser, it took 14 checkpoints before it got the internet because it went through all these boxes. So obviously, the first thing is the cost for IT. Second thing is complexity. Third thing is the latency for users because things slow down. So this was okay if you only had one or two internet gateways. You go to the internet. What the world is changing now. More and more applications that move the cloud. It's not the social media. Office 365 have picked up rather fast. Salesforce is commonly used. Then you got some of these consumer/business services. Box or Dropbox. Is it personal? Is it business? Is Facebook personal? Is it business? It all starts getting blurred. And then people, imagine you're sitting here. Your headquarters is in New York. Imagine my phone trying to go to New York through VPN before it goes in. It just doesn't work. So what do employees do? They simply go direct. They take the shortest path. But that also means they're not protected because now they're exposed. I was talking to a CIO a few months ago. I asked him, how many employees do you have? He said, 10,000. I said, how many internet gateways to the internet do you have? He said, 10,000. I thought, no. Gateways, not employees. He said, every employee has a laptop. The laptop goes where the employee goes, and often it goes direct to the internet. It is a gateway to the internet. And I said, sorry, I misspoke. Every employee has a smartphone, and many have tablets too. I probably have about 25,000 internet gateways. if you start thinking that way, the old notion of creating a couple of 3 or 5 gateways to go to the internet, and this perimeter and castle and more thing, it starts falling apart. That's the challenge. This new world of cloud computing, this new world of mobility is creating. So people are bypassing and it is creating security issues. Now they're bypassing because they want fast and rich experience. Now, the bad guys are taking advantage of that. They're saying, oh, how do I compromise? How do I go after corporate data, credit cards, IP, and whatnot? In old days, they used to attack servers. They would try to overrun firewalls, go and steal millions of credit cards, or whatever else data they would steal. But now, the data centers are all consolidated. Most companies have consolidated data centers to maybe 2 or 3 or 4. It makes sense because everything is connected properly, and they're pretty well protected with lots of good devices. They got big firewalls, IPS, you name it. So bad guys are saying, oh, let's go after these poor users that are sitting at home or coffee shop or airport, wherever they may be. And when these users go to the internet, they get tricked on clicking on something. And once you click on a malicious link, a Trojan or a rootkit comes down and infects your laptop. Every big company, whether it's Apple or Target or Home Depot or Wall Street Journal or New York Times, they all have been compromised in the past year, in spite of all the security. So what happens in almost every case? Somebody got compromised, and that person became the beachhead. This trusted device was used to go after these servers and steal them. Apple's official statement was that my employees, some of my engineers went to a site called mobilesdk.com. It really wasn't an SDK site. It was a hacking site, and that's where they got compromised. So the user is the weakest link in security, and that's what's creating a lot of problems. Zscaler. I mean, we have about 13 million users who go to our cloud every day, and we see some 13 billion transactions when they surf or go up. We're finding that about 8 to 10% of the PCs in a typical company are compromised with viruses. And this is from a pretty large database of some 5,000 companies, so it's not a small sample. So protecting users is very critical to protect the enterprise. And it becomes a bigger challenge when the users aren't sitting inside the 4 walls of the office or in your traditional perimeter. Hence the bigger challenge. Now, to make things complicated, this IoT, probably a bunch of hype around it, but more and more things are happening. Devices are becoming smarter and smarter because they can communicate, which is a great thing because you know what's going on. There's lots of good uses of this. I mean, you can see so many examples. I know so many of my friends, they got a little video camera sitting at home. They're sitting in the office, single click, oh, my home is good, my children, daycare, whatever. Amazing number of applications of the Internet of Things. But security many times becomes an afterthought. As we look at these billions of transactions on the Internet, what we're finding is there are tens of thousands of transactions we see every day where a printer from a company is talking to the Internet somewhere. Our copiers are talking. Security cameras often back up that information on some Internet site somewhere. Now, why are printers and copiers talking? A lot of these devices, the vendors are building these devices, they want to know if my toner is low or high. So they could send an email to the person who bought, your toner is high, please buy more. And they're doing a service. But they're basically connected by receiving, communicating stuff. Copiers are doing the same thing. What our security team has done, my VP of Security Research, he does a demo, he shows out there and says, let me see how many copiers and printers can I see right now out there. And which of these can be controlled from outside. You can literally control the boardroom presentation. You know how you do the audio, video presentation. You can control those and look at the stuff. It creates interesting security challenges. In fact, another interesting thing we saw was one of our customers. We deployed, and as you know, the way Zscaler works is your internet-bound traffic goes through Zscaler security checkposts. So we found this one device was talking back to command and control center. That's where botnets talk. And a customer called and said, "Oh, you must have a false positive because the device is not a person. It is an Agilent testing device." So as we dug into it, sure enough, we found that this device was powered by a Microsoft DOS diskette. And this diskette was compromised, and then we found that about 2,000 to 3,000 units that got shipped from the factory were all compromised because the diskette was compromised at root. So there are interesting examples out there that we all need to watch, but we need to understand. So IoT, they pose very interesting risks. If you look at how Target store was compromised, this is big news. And it is probably the first time in a Fortune 500 company, not only the CIO got fired, even CEO quit after this thing happened. Now, the way this thing happened was, these guys had outsourced their heating and cooling control to a third-party vendor. In all these stores, these devices, they talk. They are so-called internal things. Because how do you control the temperature remotely otherwise? Sitting in one place, they can control this communication going on. And some of the passwords, the credentials of those devices got stolen. And then there's the same single network. There's no network segmentation in the store. Once they got to that control, they're able to jump on to the cash register. Now, cash register was very well done. It was pretty secure. These guys will read the credit card number, encrypt it, write to the disk, and send it over. Pretty good, pretty safe practice. The smart guys, they downloaded a rootkit, which goes and sits in the memory. As soon as the credit card number is read, before it's encrypted, it intercepts it. It captures it, saves it locally on the disk, and twice a day, it's going to send that file over to Russia. That's how they collected some 50 million credit cards from a few thousand stores. So this very interconnected world, which is so wonderful and useful, creates some exciting, interesting challenges for us. And these are some new kinds of challenges to deal with. Now, attacks and threats are very different too. There used to be a time when we used to say, this virus has infected 50 million machines or 10 million machines in 24 hours. What's the last time you heard that news? Not really. Because at that time, the intent used to be, prove that I can do something. Nowadays, it's all about stealing. It's stealing credit card numbers, or stealing intellectual properties, or stealing state secrets. Why would you announce that you are in there? When even in the physical world, when governments put their spies in each other's countries, do they ever talk about who these people are? That's why all these things are very stealth. So what we find is this is kind of data based on all of our billions of transactions we see. The largest number of thefts is malicious content that gets presented to you when you surf the internet. You go and do something, and there's a chance that something somewhere, even on a very credible site, is malicious. In fact, these guys pay for putting some of the contents on these websites. There's a study out there, you take the top 100 websites. About 2/3 of them have been compromised at one time or another in the past 18 to 24 months. Now, they don't stay compromised for too long. Things get compromised, they get picked up, they get removed, and the lifespan of a compromised page on a big site is probably a few hours and no more than that. But nevertheless, there's tens of thousands of people who visit, who go there. So malicious content is important. In fact, the other thing we've done is, especially when there's a big news. You know, the big news, maybe some terror attacks, maybe some celebrity or some news about it. And if you go and search that, on Google.com, there's probably a decent chance that the top 10 listed, one of those links is compromised. If not the top 10, maybe the next 10. Now Google tries very hard to stay on top of it, but there's so many guys out there trying to fool the system, and you think you went to get a news or whatever, and it took you to different sites. So that's really what malicious content does. It tries to infect your PC. And then once your PC becomes bot, the botnets start calling back. Botnets take instructions from command and control center, and they get rented by the hour. And this guy calls and says, Master, what should I be doing today? You're getting instruction, we rented you for the next 4 hours or 6 hours. I mean, you can get this done, and then these things stop working. So our goal is to make sure we can have secure and internet experience to do proper commerce and business or whatever without really getting compromised out there. And in the range of other attacks, look at what antivirus we use to a big deal. It's relatively small because this thing gets caught up pretty quickly. Things are becoming far more sophisticated out there. Now, let's talk about security buckets. So this new world, a new architecture is needed. The old world of trying to put all security boxes in one data center and everyone sitting inside is no longer working, because the data centers are consolidated and users are everywhere. So this new model says, you need to protect your data centers. Of course, what do you protect it? Servers and applications, you have firewalls, IPS, denial of service attacks mitigation, you have DLP and VPN. That still needs to be done. The second big bucket is protecting users, devices, and Internet of Things. How do you do that? There are two ways. One, you try to protect the device you can. For example, you put antivirus, you have device encryption, but what are you going to do on new Internet of Things? Not a whole lot. So they need gateways. So before the communication goes to Internet, you could be checking for filtering, are there any good sites or bad sites, antivirus, advanced persistent threats, DLP data leakage, or firewalls. This is the gateway, probably the best way to protect yourself. And then there's something called ID federation, where new single sign-on based technologies that evolve, where you can make sure all users are authenticated to go to different services rather than you having to create credentials for each service on its own. And last but not least, all these logs can flow into a log correlation system. So probably a good simple way to classify thousands of security products into about 5 buckets. Now, we're going to focus on Internet Gateway area because this is the most effective way to figure out how to provide security for this new world of cloud and internet. So, a cloud-based security model basically says in this diagram is showing all kind of cloud and internet services on the top. They're showing all the resources that talk to the internet at the bottom. This may be people sitting in their headquarters, this may be offices, factories, Internet of Things, and whatnot. In fact, your factories, they're very important as well. They're all controlled, they all connect back, they talk back over the internet because we need to know what's going on. And imagine, I was talking to the president of a large chemical company. I walked him through what Zscaler does. And I walked him how, for example, we can make sure any communication going from his factories to the internet, we understand what it is, it's not going to some bad place. He said, tell me more. You talk about protecting users, that's important. But it's far more important for me to make sure a factory, and these guys make chemicals. If we say something goes wrong there's a loss of life, millions and millions of dollars. So protecting that communication, inspecting that communication is very important. So the notion here is a check post between the cloud and your corporate resources is a good way to make sure nothing bad comes in, nothing good leaks out, you enforce a policy, people take shortest path to the internet, and this is good performance. Next approach is taken. It is almost like how do you protect your country? You have to make sure that every international gateway has the best security inspection with best X-ray machines to see through anything good or bad hidden stuff is being taken in and out of the country. It's the same kind of approach, and it's the best way to handle it. In the old world, we used to buy lots of boxes, and every branch, every gateway, headquarters, and all. In the new world, if we do a better platform approach, sitting at the internet gateways, it can give you better protection and better security. You know, this cloud computing and approach I'm talking about is not something unusual. People think cloud computing, oh, it's so different. It's a natural migration. Look at the old days. We had to buy power generators for each home. That was the only option available, and we took care of it. Then time changed, power companies were built, and power utilities said, there's a socket, plug in, pay me for what you use. It became a utility service. Cloud computing is no different. If you are a manufacturing company, you're a consumer goods company, are you in the business of buying, stacking, managing boxes, or are you in the business of building what you build? Why couldn't IT or computing be as a service? That's what cloud computing is doing. And in the same way, to protect that, cloud security as a service is a natural thing as well. And that's why we're seeing the benefits of business ROI and whatnot. So in this approach, what you end up doing is you have local internet would have lots of security checkposts all around it, no matter where you are, what device you're on. Your device or office, say a router or firewall is configured to send traffic through the security checkpost. Life is good, and you basically take the shortest path. You know, Nestle is one of our customers. I was talking to one of the IT execs after rollout. I like to go and visit my customers to understand how their experience is. So I asked him, I said, so with Zscaler rolled out, you must be loving our security because security is so good. He smiled, he said, I like the security. I like something else more than the security. What is it? He said, my employees are logging on the intranet, but how fast the internet has become for them. Tell me more. He said, imagine if the world had 4 airport hubs to connect through, and you are a world traveler. You'll be visited. Our 160,000 employees across 130 countries. All of the traffic comes to 4 hubs before it goes to internet. No wonder it's slow. So when they started using a cloud-based approach, where traffic went to one of the nearest checkposts rather than just 4, it became very, very fast. Security and performance became the benefits of it. Not to speak the third thing, localized content. Imagine if you're one gateway for Europe, and that's what many companies did in the old world. They had gateway in America, gateway in Europe, gateway in Asia Pac. If your gateway happens to be in London, then all these French and German and other guys are going to see only English content. Google and all these guys think that you are in London. If you move to Paris and Frankfurt, then you have a different problem. So having localized content is becoming more and more important, and that's what also is available from this approach. And also, you know, the policy. Every company used to have a policy about internet services, cloud services, who can get what, when, where, how much. I was talking to the global CISO of GE, Larry Virginie. He's a great visionary who has been driving adoption of cloud and cloud security. So once he deployed us, and he shared with me, I was trying to understand the value he was getting from Zscaler. He said it took me 2 years to get a common security policy approved across GE's 24+ business units. Each unit has a CIO, it has a CISO, and try to get the buy-in to go out. He says, so we have very good documented security policy. There was only one problem. with all these devices that sat in all these countries and locations. I could not tell if all of them updated, patched, if the policy was here, policy was there, was the policy being in place or not. Couldn't tell. With the centralized approach with the cloud service, because we get one console, one single pane of glass, you can go and apply the policy for any part of the world, and as soon as submit happens, the policy takes off across the globe. So he said enforcement of that policy was probably one of the biggest benefits, because now he knows what's working and what's not in place. The next thing we did was, so I started this company about 7 years ago, Zscaler. And I've been in the security space since late '96. I've done 3-4 other security companies. And I've seen lots of these appliances come up. The way security evolved is one problem, a company built a box for it. Then a new problem came, another box got built, another box got built. There are lots of them. And probably the inspiration to do this came to me from a meeting I was having with a VP of IT at an American company called UPS. I was out there at that time. I was running a company called Cypher Trust. It was an email security company for ending spam and all that stuff. So I put my slide. I was trying to sell that email security appliance, and this guy, I still recall his name in the conference room, John Dillon. He sees my first slide which said email security appliance. He said, "Jay, you're here to sell me a box." I said, "John, security is bought as an appliance these days because buying software takes longer time to deploy and configure and all this stuff." He said, "It may be so." He said, "I have 30 plus boxes in my DMZ, that's a gateway area." He said, "I have an edict. If my team wants to bring a box in, they must remove at least one, maybe more. We are tired of boxes." And I kind of struggled for a second, and I said, "What do you have for email security?" He leaned to the guy next to him and said, "What do we have?" The guy said, "Well, we have 3 SendMail proxies, we got a few antivirus boxes with Trend Micro, we got some Tumbleweed boxes doing encryption, and we got some Minesweeper boxes doing content filtering." And he counted to 12 boxes. Then I said, "I think I can cut it into half." And John said, "You may proceed." It was interesting. So eventually we won the business. We were able to cut it down to 4 boxes and do the email security. But email is very forgiving. Email is store and forward. It can take us a minute or two. You don't really mind. But when it comes to internet traffic, you take my response time from half a second to a second, it will start completing. So building a platform that could do a number of services is very important. And that's because, one, the latency is important, and second is information sharing. If you're able to look at some information in 5 different ways and correlate, you get better results than security in isolation. For example, take for 9/11, CIA had certain information, FBI had certain information, NSA had certain information. Had they connected and correlated, a lot could have been found, but they all acted in isolation. So our goal was, if I'm really being a checkpost, I'm looking at the traffic that's headed to the internet, I can look at it from 10 different ways and try to get better information than the final product will be. That was number 1 desire for doing this. Number 2 desire was response time. You know, when you go through an international airport, they make you go through 3 queues typically. 1, they check your boarding pass. 2nd, they need to check your passports. And 3rd, they need to check for security. 3 queues could be combined into 1. And in the 1 queue, they check A, B, C, you move on fast. We did the same concept, so I can give you better response time. And then you can eliminate a lot of different boxes for a product. It could be, it's cheaper to buy, deploy, and manage. So hence the platform concept evolved, which is helping a lot because you can add on things when you want and what you want. Now, what other issues is cloud services creating? This was what a CIO shared with me. He said, my CFO came to me and said, for audit and liability reasons, he needs a list of all cloud services our company uses. And he said, wasn't sure where to start. There's nothing to report, all right? You log on, you go to Amazon.com, you start using AWS and whatnot. So I said, what did you do? He said, I went to purchasing department looking for peers to cloud companies, but we didn't find very many. Because it's simply a credit card, you charge $10 or $5, or better yet, most of these guys have some kind of free services. You start putting your stuff on Box or Dropbox, and CIOs and CISOs worry about it. And they want to know to start with what's being used, and then the second step is to figure out if it's safe or not safe. The visibility is missing itself. So with a good cloud service, you can get full visibility. This is an example of some of the screenshots of one of our customers. So they can simply go to the screen and say, oh, Salesforce is being used. The numbers are transactions, means how much is being used from Tumblr to Office 365 and others and all. Good to start, good to know what service they use. And they need to know collaboration applications. WebEx is widely used, Yammer, a little bit GoToMeeting, Hootsuite, some live meetings and whatnot. Once you know, then you can define a proper policy. Same kind of stuff. Media. People of different companies struggle with social media. Should I allow, should I know how much you allow posting, not posting, there's liability issues. But this company knows exactly what's being used and they can have policies. Same kind of stuff can be done on streaming side of it or cloud storage side of it. Many companies when they look and say, oh, I thought my sanction thing is actually Box, but Dropbox is being used a lot more than Box. What's going on here? These employees don't know any better. That's what they do. This is very interesting. This company was shocked to find that the #1 webmail used by their employees was a Russian mail site called Windmail.ru. They just couldn't believe that that's what the case was. So that's what you get from a service that can give you visibility. And then mobile traffic. Most companies have no idea what kind of mobile traffic is going through, what's being used. So since the traffic that's on your corporate network, on your Wi-Fi, that traffic essentially comes through a router and firewall, can be redirected to a cloud service. You can have full visibility, kind of applications, kind of devices being used, and kind of destinations and locations the traffic is going through. Becomes very useful. Then the next part is security. It is a big issue these days. CISOs used to complain that they really don't get much time and attention from a CIO. They wanted a seat at the table on the executive suite. And now they're being asked to come and present during the board meeting. And they're being asked, how good is our security? Are we going to be next? It's a tough question, it's a tough problem. So, if you the proper cloud security, looking at all the gateway stuff, can give you full visibility. This is another example of a customer. For this customer, this is 1 quarter's data. This company has about 150,000 employees. About 9 million times when the content was served, page was served, 9 million times we blocked a part of it because it was malicious. So there's 9 million instances of malicious links or JavaScript or something that was being presented that was blocked. So employees don't get compromised. It's a good thing. Now, this is the early stage. They had about 1.1 million times their PCs tried to call the command and control center. And we blocked them because it should be blocked. We don't want these botnets to be communicating outside. So obviously, once they do this, we can identify whose machines are infected. They end up cleaning it. But this becomes the starting point to know what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. This part, this is very, very real. United Airlines is a customer of ours. When they were testing the service early on, they found that very early that one of the PCs, in fact, the box was calling Russia. These guys are being part of what they call critical infrastructure. They basically wanted to take an action quickly, moved on, cleaned up the PCs, and deployed the service. It happens all the time. I had an email exchange with CISO of a company in the auto parts retail business. He sent me an email. He said, Jay, I want to share with you the value that the service has delivered. He said that he wrote the same thing. He said, we just rolled it out at the headquarters, and within an hour, we got some alerts of a botnet called Block. And as we looked underneath, one of the names was our chief operating officer. So obviously, I went to him, told him that we need to clean his PC. Pretty happy, and I felt good, but it's a real thing. It happens out there. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal, it was about 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. The CEO and president of this Canadian company, Norca, his PC was infected for a few years. Finally, it got discovered. I mean, it became a big story. It was a half-a-page story in the Wall Street Journal. But how this is carried on. I don't recall exactly the full detail of it, but it's an interesting story. So these devices are powerful. They communicate, and the security becomes very important. Not only that, and this was an example of sharing value. On the left side, we kind of fuzzied it to keep it private. But what this chart is showing is top 25 botnet activity. This is my user. This user and his partner is calling to this destination site, and here's the name of these botnets. These botnets have their own names, Zeers and whatnot. So some of these are calling thousands of times. This is the number of times that these called because it's called frequent. So the need of our security guys to make sure these things get cleaned up, a clean, safe environment. Think of the physical world. How comfortable do you feel if there are spies sitting around your house or your enterprise? You don't. Same thing needs to be done here as well. Then, interesting example is you can look at kind of bandwidth. When you start sending traffic locally, the traffic goes on a broadband connection, which is much cheaper than on MPLS backhaul. You end up saving a lot of bandwidth money because MPLS is far more expensive than using local broadband. So this is, now switching gears to give you a little bit idea about Zscaler as a company. We built this, when I started this company, my goal was not to build one more product, have a platform, cloud enabled. I said security for the cloud world needs to be done in the cloud. So we built this platform. Today, we have about 5,000 enterprise customers with 13 million users across 185 countries. And they do about 13 billion transactions a day. What is a transaction? Every time you request something from the internet, you go to google.com, that's a transaction. You go wherever, we count that. So we count it because we inspect everything, we log everything. And to give you comparative data, when all Google searches every day around the globe adds up to about 13 billion. Same kind of number. The difference is when, for example, when Philips is a customer of ours or Schneider Electric customer of ours, every employee when goes to the internet for anything from Salesforce to Google to BBC to whatever, it goes through us. So we are basically, the count volume number goes up. We see about 100 million threats every day that get logged. We're growing about 100% year over year, and Gartner puts us as a leader in what they call secure web gateway magic quadrant. So we do a lot more than just a web gateway. They're looking at the new magic quadrant they want to create for the new world of IT. Zscaler, when I started that company, I said, what's the most important thing we need to be successful? He says scalability. If we don't scale, the is no business because we need to be able to take lots of customers. So Zscaler stands for Zenith of Scalability. So there are three dimensions of scale. Number of users per package. Our single largest customer happens to be in this country, and that is NHS. There's some 1.6 million people as a part of the NHS network. Before they hit the internet, they go through us to keep them safe. And then you got lots of typical large companies out there. On the second dimension was number of countries. And that credit also goes to the UK. British American Tobacco is in 180 decent countries. Every employee in every country goes through our check code. Third dimension was number of offices and locations. There is an American organization called LDS Church. It's St. Lauderdale. They have some 30,000 meeting houses around the globe in the remotest part of Peru and Chile and wherever. They didn't savvy marketeers. They basically go there and say, if you come to my church, you can use my free computer and free internet. So if people come, they start going where the church will rather not have them go. So they need some policy around it. Okay, on the side, imagine managing 30,000 locations every day. On Sunday, that volume of transaction is higher than the other 6 days combined. So it's a real IT problem. And these guys are a very sophisticated IT team with about 80% security team they have. So the point is we scale, and we scale very well. And to give you the shortest path to internet with your policy and protection, we end up putting our service in some 100 data centers around the globe in every part of the world. So no matter where your employees are, they can quickly get to the internet safely. So in summary, cloud and mobile, they're here, they're happening. You know, sometimes IT tries to resist it, and it doesn't work for too long. I was talking to a CIO of a large American company. This new CIO came. He said, I've been brought in to fix IT. I said, so tell me a bit more. He said, IT in this company is known to say no. And security is known to say, hell no. IT needs to be enabled. IT needs to start embracing new technologies because new technologies actually can do business help. It can do productivity. It can do lots of benefits. So in this cloud and mobile world, cloud-based security makes sense rather than the old school appliance approach we're used to. And inspecting traffic is the best way to know what's out there and how to secure it, what's dangerous traffic flowing in or out. Otherwise, it takes one click to attach any confidential document to the Gmail, it's gone, and it has to be encrypted. How do companies make sure their intellectual property, their customer databases aren't lost, aren't gone out? And a platform approach to make sure that you don't have to keep on deploying, managing, deploying products. In the case of cloud, it becomes even worse. Traffic going from box to box is hard enough. To jump from cloud to cloud becomes extremely unreal or not very practical.